it's kind of class. I'm the founder of Film.Music.Media. I'm a film music journalist, but I work in the industry as well, in the business. So I can't wait to dig into, and also thank you for joining us on our beautiful panel here, in our niche interests, who are all kind of interested in the same stuff behind the scenes, looking at these amazing, talented people. So I want to jump right into it. So I want to go to Ryan first. So Ryan, Me, Myself, and the Void is one of Echobend Pictures' latest feature films. Ryan, can you share insights into the development process behind the film and how it aligns with the company's vision for storytelling and cinematic innovation?
For sure, thank you. It's also our first feature film, our latest and first.
Wow.
We started the company about 3 years ago, and I've been freelance in LA for about 12 years, so me and my partner Zubin, who started the company together, we wanted to create a company that just didn't talk a lot, just did stuff.
Yeah.
And so we started off doing a lot of music videos. There's some music videos you saw in the sizzle reel. We've done commercials, but we always had ambitions to do feature films. And an old roommate of mine brought this script by, and it was co-written by this amazing director named Tim H, who I'd seen a bunch of his work on YouTube. And so basically we were going, okay, well, if we want to make a feature, here's a feature that's not only very feasible on a low budget, but it's also a really great script. So we just said, let's make it. And we were like, how are we going to finance it? How are we going to do all these other elements? We're like, we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out. We're shooting it in November. And that's kind of how everything happened with the film. We just kind of pushed forward. In that time, we got bigger music videos, we got bigger jobs, and we kind of used that to supplement a lot of the budget, and we just went into production. But that's the big, when you're talking about the culture that we try to instill, is I found that in this industry there's a lot of people that like to talk a lot about a lot of projects.
Yeah.
And so for us it was like, let's just be what we say we want to be. And so this is the first, we're going to be making a couple more features coming forward, but we're really excited to make this one.
Well, I mean, props to you and your team, because like, I think in today's industry, it's like, I think companies like yours are going to be like the future, honestly. Like, to kind of take it back into the hands of creators and kind of push a creative vision out there. So congratulations on, because that is terrifying to even start it, to get it up and running. So congrats. I mean, you're sitting here talking about it, so that's amazing.
We're really excited about it. Hopefully it'll be out soon for people to see.
Absolutely. Well, I want to jump over to Valerie. So Valerie, A24 is Dixon musical. I mean, that's their first musical. And so congratulations, because it's a fantastic film. I mean, and your work is just, stupendous across the board. I mean, it brings all the characters to life. So I was wondering if you could kind of dive into what your inspiration was for the designs that we saw in the trailer, especially kind of for the God and Evelyn characters. I mean, what kind of brought you into what about those characters, I guess, sparked the innovation for those costumes?
So when reading the script, there was a character, God, played by Fournier, and I didn't want, what we always see God as being in films, white, mostly white clothing, but we wanted
Morgan Freeman, that's all we can
say. Exactly.
Exactly.
I wanted him to be colorful and vibrant, and so I kind of took inspiration from, what you see in church and you see, stained glass, so we just painted a mural onto his costume, and it just kind of went from there. Larry Charles was the director, and he said no idea is too extravagant and far, so we tried to push the envelope as far as we could to make it as inappropriate as possible.
I love Larry Charles. I'm so amazing got to work with him. It's such a unique project for him, because he came from like Seinfeld and doing like Manson Anonymous or Ridiculous with Bill Maher. It's like it's all over the place. Like, he said, bring me any crazy idea, and I'll probably say yes. So that's exactly what we did. That's awesome.
Yeah. And with Evelyn, Larry had a vision that he wanted her to feel like Miss Havisham from Great Expectations. So we sort of stuck with that silhouette and just went into the fitting. I honestly went into the fitting, had no idea what would come of it, and with Megan's ideas and my ideas and Larry's inspiration, we tried to keep her as colorful as possible, as many prints and crazy headpieces and glasses that we could throw on her, and it just all came together.
That's amazing. Well, you did such an amazing job. I mean, just from those clips you can tell, but the whole film comes together. I mean, everything you put in the film, like the scenery, of course. Yeah. Well, I want to jump over to Matt. So, Matt, staying on the comedy genre, let's talk about Miracle Workers End Times. The series explores a unique blend of comedy and existential themes. How did you approach kind of creating the musical themes that capture the tone of the series? And I also want to point out that this is was probably the final season of this series, but they didn't have a composer before it, and they felt the need to bring you on board and you brought such a different dynamic to this season. Of course, it's an anthology series, so each kind of season stands on its own. But yeah, talk to me about approaching this.
Yeah, it was interesting because it's it's the show's first composer, and the showrunners had never actually worked with a composer before. So it was nice because we kind of baked in time to figure out the tone of the score, write different themes. They were going for overall like an 80s VHS vibe, like kind of those cheesy VHSs that you would rent in the 80s or from the 80s. And so we knew they wanted like a synth approach. So I went through a few different iterations of the palette, which kinds of synths to use. And to answer your question, I think the palette was the key to balancing the different tones, the different comedy, the drama, the existential crisis. Even though I have no idea how do you score existential crisis? I have no idea.
Everything at once.
Yeah, but I think finding the right palette that could cover all of that to different degrees, so it all feels of a piece, was I think the key to kind of solving those things.
Yeah, absolutely. You did an amazing job. Because the past seasons were using library music, and I think Matt being involved made such a huge difference in the series. So yeah, wish they had you for the first 3 seasons instead of the last 4.
Well, let's build a time machine.
Yes. Well, I'll jump over to our sound folks with Tess. So Tess, first of all, I want to congratulate you because Waffles and Mochi Restaurant was nominated for a Children's and Family Emmy Award for sound. So yeah, congratulations. That's amazing. Yeah. So yeah, we saw a clip, very robust and textual clip from the show. How did you approach creating a sound environment that kind of complements the vibrant and diverse atmosphere for a children's cooking show?
So we really wanted to balance out being silly and serious for this series because so my background is mostly in sound for animation. So I like really incorporating really wacky and silly sounds. And I thought it lended itself really nicely to this live action show because it is, the main characters are puppets and it's intended for children. But they also talk about some different cultures and backgrounds of different people all over the world. So we really tried to strike a balance between being really funny and silly and being more grounded. And like one tiny example of that, like really minute, is we made a custom sound effect for one of the characters, Mochi, who saw as like a little ball of mochi that bounces around. And so we wanted to have him be a little cartoony with like little boings as he hopped, but we wanted it to also sound as if it's like something that his body could be emitting and the people in his world could be hearing, not just sort of a cartoon sound on top of it. So we mixed like a cartoon sound with some rubbery elements and made it a little bit more grounded in reality. So that's like a tiny way that we did it, but then more broadly through the episodes, we picked our moments too. So for instance, in the clip that I showed, that episode, Waffles and Mochi overfeed this bread starter and it kind of grows into a monster. So for that, we kind of went all out and added monster vocals and stomach rumbles and lots of farts, which are always funny. And we could have that fun there, and then later on in the episode, the two main characters sort of travel around and learn about different recipes from different cultures that they could bake this starter into. And in those moments, we cut back on the silliness and tried to really focus on making the cooking experience really like rich and textured, so that kids would be like excited to try new foods or learn about different cultures. So yeah, just trying to strike a balance is kind of our overall approach to it.
Yeah, and I know you said it's meant for kids, but farts is universal.
Yeah,
and if you notice, the loudest person laughing is my wife right here. So it definitely hits a wide diversity of demographics for sure. Well, I want to jump over to Ethan. Now, Ethan, you work on Goosebumps for Disney Plus, but so many people here sitting grew up on the main series that was of course R.L. Stein's books, and there's the kind of the baked-in kind of feel of what Goosebumps is, kind of this more maybe family tune, like kind of creepy. So I'm curious, how you approach the series sound-wise and creating those soundscapes and the overall eerie atmosphere. And how did you kind of build all of that out?
Well, the first thing is we're sort of beholden to the image. So
Yeah.
the tone of the show that we're going to work with is determined by what we're seeing and also the pacing of the picture edit, because we come in late enough in the game where we're going to have some understanding of
Right.
what the show is trying to do from that point of view. So that's really where we start. And this is a Goosebumps that's more, it's trying to strike that balance between kids like when we grew up with books and us, all the way up to our generation who started with the books back in the early 90s.
Yeah.
So we're sort of trying to be a little bit more mature and a little bit scarier, but not too scary, so that we don't draw in new people and new kids to the show. When it comes to creating suspense and horror and scary elements, what philosophically I try to do is root everything in the familiar and then break the sound, which is just what I call it. But it's, with suspense, it's a little bit more subtle.
Yeah.
So it might be something like just detune the phone ring or give it a little warble or something, so that it's a sound that you very clearly know, but it doesn't quite sound right. And so it gives you sort of this unsettling feeling. And then sometimes, depending on the show, the moment, whatever, we will actually quite literally break the sound, which, in horror, nothing ever works properly. There's no door that's well oiled. Every house has that crack in it somewhere that the wind gets through and causes this
Floorboards squeak all the time.
Yeah, but I loathe the day when all we have are electric vehicles and we're trying to make horror movies from things that don't
We're
make
doing a
sense.
brand new high-rise in downtown,
Yeah, right? I don't know. I don't think you can make Christine with a Tesla, but, I don't know, maybe that'll be an interesting challenge one day in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to jump back to Matt, and maybe a few other people will jump in there too, but as creatives, you may have had the opportunity to kind of slip in an Easter egg. I think a lot of us, when we're working alone, and you're just like, I'm going to slip something in just for me, or maybe somebody else will notice. And so I'm curious for you, have you ever included like a hidden detail in your work that's either a reference to the project itself or something personal that maybe only you knew about? So I'm curious.
I don't know. I don't think so. I do it. I think I built a career doing a lot of parody scores.
Yeah.
So those are Easter eggs for people that can tell what I'm parodying.
Right. Is there anything like super obscure that I don't like you could probably get a tone or feel like, oh, this is parodying like a certain genre or something, but there's something like a note or a certain instrument that was just like this is going to be real deep cut or sound style or something.
It just occurred to me. There was one parody the last season of Harley Quinn. There's a very, very brief parody of Avatar. And so I had to find that synth flute that's in that score. So I just did it's very brief. So I don't know. I hope someone heard that.
Yeah, okay. I mean that is amazing.
This guy nailed it.
Get that Warner, Yes, did it. Well, I'm curious about Valerie, for costumes, was there any specific detail that you put in that you didn't, even if it wasn't going to be on camera or not? I'm curious if you put something in there.
Actually, I have a kit of a lot of clothes that I accumulate from project to project, and I would raid my mother's closet just to find fun, interesting, vintage, old stuff that I could use. And I pulled out this one robe from her closet, and I brought it to Megan's fitting for Dick's, and Megan picked it because her mom owned that same robe.
Yeah.
And I think, and I can't think of other projects, but I know I throw it into fittings a lot because it helps also offset my budget.
Yeah.
Because it's free.
That's
So that I think in a
That's
couple
awesome.
projects I would throw that in, but it meant a lot to me, and it meant a lot to Megan to be wearing something of that reminded her of her mother, and it was from my mom's closet. So
Yeah, absolutely. Well, even for you, I'm sure you got to have some, working in sound design, you must insert something that like, or even.
Yeah, there was one time I gave a friend a wedding gift in a show. When he got married, for reasons I can't remember, I didn't get him a wedding gift at the wedding, and then we forgot about it, and years later he was like, you never got me a wedding gift, you jerk. And so I was like, well, what do you want? He's like, put a sound in one of your shows. I was like, okay, so in one episode of the show, we were in a hospital and we do these custom hospital pages. Dr. So-and-so, please come to the OR. So I threw his name into one of them.
Okay.
And it managed to survive the gauntlet of producer and studio notes and stayed in the show and made it to air. So we got to hear his name on television.
Did you preface him? Did you say?
I told him it was in that episode.
You
I
didn't
made
tell
him
him?
watch the whole episode. It was a show he'd never watched before and probably never would. And he watched the whole show and he's like, I have no idea.
Wow,
I was
you
like,
missed
okay,
it.
it's in the first 5 minutes, and he went bananas trying to find it, and he couldn't hear it because
That's so funny.
it's such a background thing.
Yeah.
It's just like, all right, man, in the hospital scene, in the first minute of the show. You didn't even have to watch the whole show. I just made you do that because
Right.
not trolling me, but it's in the first minute of the show, and it took him a long time, and all of a sudden he was just like, wait, did I hear my name? It's like, you heard your name.
Yeah.
Your name made it in the show.
Absolutely. Well, I want to jump back to Valerie, because you're part of such a collaborative team, not just costume design, but you're working with cinematographer, you mentioned Larry Charles, the director, and the actors themselves. So I'm curious, in that kind of collaborative department, how do, I guess, all those departments interact with each other? Do you sit down at the beginning of production and all get on the same page, and then continue that communication throughout production? I'm curious how you guys keep in sync, making sure that the vision is kind of unified and kind of serving the story.
Yeah, so when you first start, it's a lot of collaborating directly with the director.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a clear vision of what he wants to move forward, and then we bring in all the departments. We have a couple production meetings, and so all the department heads will come together and we'll read through the script and we'll talk about, the production designer will say, well, these are the color of the walls that I want, or the sofa, and so I take note of that to make sure that either on purpose or not, the costumes are cohesive with the world that they're going to live in. The script does tell a lot by saying, the descriptions of the type of person they are, where they live, their socioeconomic status, all of that, and then that kind of helps gear me to design a look that feels right for that scene, I guess.
Yeah, how does color get discussed in terms of a color palette? Is that something dictated by Larry? And then
There wasn't a color palette for Dix. He just was kind of go for it. A movie I just wrapped, the director wanted 5 colors only.
Wow.
So we had to stick within that palette. And I always push hey, let's try that, and then it would get shut down very quickly.
Is that more challenging when you're limited, or is it more creatively rewarding? Or
and then I always feel the second we wrap, I find everything I needed in those colors after.
Yeah.
But no, with Dix, because it was a musical, it was kind of any color, the more color, the better.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well, kind of piggybacking on kind of collaboration communication, Ryan, that's crucial, especially when you're starting a company like that and a production company. What tools and practices have you kind of found most effective in kind of ensuring everyone's on the same page and can contribute their ideas seamlessly? And it feels like a unified effort versus kind of someone at the top kind of directing kind of everything.
Yeah, I think it's really important with creativity because you're trying to create this environment that allows for these beautiful moments, these lightning in a bottle moments that I think are very kinetic. It's an energy that you pick up when you watch a movie or a film, and it's like we all hear the stories of De Niro, that you talking to me in the mirror is something that just happened organically through improv.
Yeah.
So you put all the prep work in, and then you allow it to play, and I think play is such an important part of creativity that when it becomes very Wall Street, everyone forgets about. It's hit this deadline you have, or it's like someone spends 10 years writing a script. You're like, all right, you got $5 million, you have 3 months to replicate everything you did in those 10 years. And I feel like it sets people up for failure. But in our company, what we're trying to do to differentiate a little bit is, as everyone was going to remote and working from home, which is kind of what I've done the entirety of the time that I'm freelance, I was like, I want to be around people people.
Yeah,
And I want to have that kinetic energy. I know, like, if I'm trying to get a coffin for a music video, I'd be like, oh, who knows a coffin person? I have to text all these people or I have to go search on Google. But if we're in the office, which is what we've kind of created over in Atwater, people can just be connected next to you and be like, I got a coffin guy.
I got my coffin guy, yeah.
Guy's name. And you find this, it's a really beautiful thing that starts to happen. So we've created this environment and community of a lot of different creatives. And another element I find is a lot of people are really pigeonholed into certain departments or certain things, but most creative people like variety, and I think that's what a lot of freelancers like. We like to be in this project or this project. It's like you're not just doing specific, like I only do true crime documentaries.
Right.
It's like I want to do different things every single day, and some people are like, oh wow, you're an amazing singer. So we have a producer on our team, and we have a music department of our company. And someone needed a backup vocalist, and she's like, I can sing, and we're like, all right, come in and sing. And see, she's singing on this really big artist backup track on her album, and I love that. I think I love that, so I'm trying to find more of that when I'm working with people, because a lot of people have a lot of slashes, and instead of saying, hey, hide that side of yourself, or like, you're an accountant, but you're really great at karaoke, or you're an accountant, you really want to be a great screenwriter. It's like, there's a room for everybody in everything. Like, everyone's, in our company, you talk to everyone, they'll be like, I'm a director, but I also do this, or I'm a director, and people are like, oh, well, I guess everyone's a director, and I'm like, why is that a bad thing?
Right.
Let's have a lot of directors, and let's have them all tell their stories, because that's cool. Like, everyone has a story to tell, so let's create an environment that allows everyone to do that.
No, I agree with that completely, because for the past few years I was working remote, and I work at Cartoon Network Studios, and my main career came back in the studio. Actually, I came back just in time, all the artists came back, and all our showrunners came back, and it's just like, it makes such a huge difference, because when you're kind of, everyone, when we work in our kind of siloed areas, we kind of forget the big picture sometimes.
Yeah.
And I think being in the rooms together like that really helps with that.
Well, I saw like the Fablemans recently, and it's like young Spielberg goes in the backlot. It's like John Ford. It's like Hitchcock. This is awesome.
Yeah.
What was that? And then we were talking about the backlot. You're like, there's like nobody there. It's like a security guard and just people going from point A to point B. And it's like and obviously COVID was a big factor of that, and so that makes sense. But I think creativity is through proximity, and that's what sets are. Is when you're on set, you're kind of in the zone, or when you're in your post room, you're with the other people bouncing ideas off each other. So trying to recreate that, I think, constantly every day is something that I'm excited about.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, piggybacking on like communication and collaboration, Tess, I'm curious from your perspective, working in your world, like who are you communicating with and communicating and collaborating with during that whole process?
We mostly, in the beginning of when we first get an episode of a project or the first major project, we mostly speak to the showrunners, and we have a full meeting with them and do like a spot, which we watch down the whole thing, we ask for questions, we discuss, what the goal is for the whole process. But and then we're kind of on our own for a while, so it's mostly just the showrunners. But occasionally we'll mostly work with music. So Matt, I'm sure you've worked with soundtrackers before too. Particularly, I worked on this one project recently called Fright Crew. It's a horror cartoon, and they had these monsters that can only be defeated if you play with the devil's chord, which is like this tritone note. And so we wanted to try to incorporate that into their vocals when we designed them, but we also wanted to make sure that it would work with music in the final realm. And usually sound designers and composers are working simultaneously. So we asked the showrunner if we could get in contact with composers, and they would send us demos, and we would pitch and tune our work to make it work for theirs. So we always are open to working with more people. It's usually just the showrunners, but we always try to do our best with the outcomes.
Right. Absolutely. Well, Ethan, with you, how do you kind of approach like setting that tone with your team? And do you have like a certain approach for every? That's kind of the same for every project. Is it different for every project, where you kind of sit down, make sure you establish the tone, communicate everything, and
Yeah, it's much the same of what Tess was saying. We'll have a spotting session where it'll be me, and if I have a co-supervisor, my co-supervisor, or if it's a sound design intense show, it'll be the sound designer, and talking largely philosophically about how it should sound and make you feel.
yeah.
And then the rest of it is a lot of passing of notes between me and my crew, because we're still very remote.
Right.
Like one of my editors lives in Idaho, so like we're never in a room together talking, but it's a lot of emailing and texting, and I'm also not someone who wants to sit over your shoulder and tell you what buttons to push.
Yeah.
So
trust your team to kind of
if I have to do that, then we've got a larger problem that needs to be solved.
Yeah.
So, I try to avoid that at all possible, and then usually it's a lot of pages of notes and ideas, and like I said, it's largely philosophical. We don't have to say put the carbine go in there. We kind of know what that's going to be, but if there's something that has to be different about that, then we need to point that out. So it's a lot of mood, and then you just have to trust and hire a good crew that understands what you're saying and also isn't afraid to ask you questions when you don't get it wrong.
Yeah.
And then we'll have conversations there to try and make sure that we're all on the same page on what we think needs to happen. And then we present it, and then we go back and we redo it.
Do you allow, I guess, space to experiment? Like, if you have that time to because you say it's all kind of philosophically kind of get to it, it's all about feel that you and earlier you talked about kind of finding get that phone to be kind of tuned a little bit. When do you know? I guess it's right when you're okay, this is it, we got it. Is it just all instinct?
Yeah,
how much
in
experimentation?
TV especially, the pace is so fast that you don't get a whole lot of chances to make multiple iterations of something that you did. So it's right when it stays in the shot. Is ultimately what it comes down to. But it is largely instinct, and the team has everybody has sort of their lane. We have kind of a pretty stringent separation of powers, or division of labor. I'm a dialogue person, I'm a media person, I'm a sound effects person, I'm a background person, on the show, and they all, we all talk to each other to make sure we're not getting in each other's way, but you have control over what the atmospheres of this show is going to be. Here's the direction that we want to go. And we're usually pretty close.
Yeah. I mean, I think for sound design, you and Tess, I think that whole world is so unique, and I mean, so much. You can just go anywhere with it. And I feel like it really is about working and using instinct. It's all about relying on what feels right.
And it's extremely subjective. So you get in front of the showrunner and you find out that you're a mile away. And that's fine. We go. The good thing about sound is it's very quick to fix. So we're always chasing visual effects. We will do our show with Goosebumps. We would do a version of a creature that we've never seen before.
Oh wow!
And then
not even those are animatic or previs or anything.
Nothing.
Wow!
We would start with nothing because it didn't exist, and then the showrunner would be like, "Well, that's not actually really what it's going to look like." And then we would do a version, and we would do another pass at it, and then we get another version which was mildly different than the version we just saw. And we're constantly kind of having to update, but we can because we can move so much faster. It takes an hour for me to do it now. It takes visual effects a couple of days. So we're sort of in this position where because we make sure that we're able to adjust.
Absolutely. Well, Matt, talking about working in terms of collaboration with your showrunner, because you're working on a show that and a showrunner that didn't have a composer before, and you're working on a show that was using library music, and you were creating this. You mentioned kind of this '80s kind of feel. It has this kind of Mad Max apocalyptic kind of take, and you're blending different genres and tones. So I'm curious, what was your take in terms of talking and making sure you got your palette right and everyone you were in sync with throughout the whole process?
It's interesting. We worked together for about a month and a half or so before we did our spying sessions. It was all about just getting to know each other, collaborating, and I did a couple of rounds of themes and palette presentations, just to kind of hone things in, and a couple things from my first pass actually didn't make it into the final show, but it was really nice, and we also try different things, and they would even throw ideas out of me. I remember this one time we were trying to figure out what the sound was, and one of the showrunners, Robert Padnick, sent me this Dua Lipa track. I can't remember what the title of the track is, but hey, there's this synth sound at the front of it. I know it's not 80s, but I want something like this.
Yeah.
Okay. I can do that. It's fine. And it became one of the main sounds of the show, and But yeah, I mean, tried different things. Some things did not work. Like there was one class where like, hey, maybe we should try like 90s sitcom stuff.
Right.
Okay, I'll try it. And I said that we did a pass. We were doing reviews in person, which is always great with a composer. Like especially now, like, even before COVID, it was a lot. I always do a lot of like sending quick times.
Yeah.
You know, and then you'd give like notes back in a Google Doc or something. Like, that's
yeah.
it's better to be in the room. You can see the reaction.
Also, I think when you're in the room with, like, when you're presenting to a director or producer or anything, like, I don't know if with you, like, when I present my work to somebody, like, my brain almost, like, transplants to their head or something, where you're, like, trying to envision how they're taking it in. I don't know if that's, like, you, like, where you kind of, like, try to, like, spiritually inhabit their body and see how they're reacting or something.
Yeah, trying to project myself. Please love it. Please love it. But also, like, oh, I can.
But just
sometimes
read them too, like, read how they're feeling and stuff like that. Yeah.
But sometimes you can tell, like, oh, they hate this.
Yeah.
And I know why. I know why they hate this. Got it.
Right. Yeah.
But yeah, and I was going to piggyback up what Tess and Ethan were saying, like, you know, especially you said working with the composer, like reach out to the composer, let's make sure we're in the right key. But I'll do the reverse. I'll reach out to the mixer or the sound designer. It's like, okay, I know there's going to be a sound here that's probably going to have a pitch, like a siren or a whistle or something. So I want to make sure we know, at least I know what pitch it is, so I could make sure it works for the score, or if it's like a tense scene, make sure it works against the score.
Yeah.
So it's
Because with sound, you're competing with, like, especially if it's an action-heavy like scene or something, you can get lost in the mix, the sound effect get lost in the mix, and like a certain beat gets lost. Music will drown it out, or sound effects will drown the music out. Yeah, for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, I want to go down the line and kind of, you know, I think everyone's we're all working on stuff. I know we can't talk about everything because people are under certain NDAs, but Tess, I know you have some stuff that you're working on, so maybe why don't you share what's coming up we can look forward to?
Yeah, actually later this week on December 8th, so Friday, I have 2 features that are coming out. Which is
Oh, wow.
exciting.
Nice.
So the first one is Being Shark's Big Movie. That's on Nickelodeon and Paramount Plus, and the second is Diary of a Wimpy Kid Christmas Cabin Fever. Now be at Disney Plus.
Awesome. Well, Ryan, is there anything that we can look forward to from Echobend? Echobend? Yeah.
That's a good
Echo brand
name. Yeah, I mean the as you can see in like the sizzle or just what I'm talking, we kind of have our hands in a million different things. That's in features, docs, commercials, music videos.
Yeah.
The website is kind of our home base where we placed everything. So, but we're always shooting and doing cool things. Whether it's the commercials, right now we're doing like a series for U.S. Foods that has Craig Robinson reprising his role from The Office.
Oh, perfect.
So he's like teaching that's like their internal, teaching them how to like be in the warehouse.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably someone's like, that guy's funny in The Office. Let's have him do exactly that for our company. But it's great. They're really fun, and he's awesome. So that's shooting next week in Atlanta, and yeah, we have a million different things. But if people are interested, you can go to our site echobend.com and you can sign up for our newsletter. And we have like a monthly thing that kind of says, makes sense of the craziness.
Yeah.
Like right now, we have the other project that's coming out will be something we did for Amazon and The Sims, which apparently is still a thing. Sims 4 is like still releasing packs to the 10-year-old.
Oh yeah.
It's really big. So we basically, we have a series we did for them that will be on Amazon Prime.
Awesome.
So
That's awesome.
yeah.
So Valerie, anything that we can talk about? Are you allowed to share anything?
Yeah, I have a movie that I designed that's going to come out on Netflix next year. It's called Incoming. It's with Bobby Cannavale, and it's just a funny high school comedy. He plays a drunk science teacher.
Yeah. I mean, Bobby's perfect for that.
Yeah, perfect. He's
I love,
wiring.
yeah, absolutely. Ethan, anything you're allowed to share? Or
We're almost done working on season 2 of Pretty Little Liars.
Oh, perfect.
And then at some point next year, although I can't say because I don't know exactly when, but we'll be doing season 5 of You.
Oh, great.
So that'll eventually show. But
Matt, how about you? Anything you're allowed to share?
I guess the only thing I'm allowed to say, 2 weeks ago, now it's officially announced. 2 weeks ago, the new season of Harley Quinn was just announced, so
Yes.
that'll
Yeah,
be my
congrats.
next thing. Then hopefully, now that the strikes are over,
Yeah. I know because we're kind of in the same world. I'm not because I'm at Cartoon Network Studios. We recently got merged with Warner Brothers Animation, and I see all the going-ons of projects that I'm kind of not involved in. But when I heard of how they went back, so I was like, yes. But yeah, so kind of to wrap things up, and then we have some time to take some questions. But I think a lot of people, if you're sitting here for sure, kind of into our industry and kind of inspired by kind of everything that our panel does. So I'm curious if you could just give a piece of advice, just kind of general advice for anyone who's looking to get their foot in the door, kind of build their careers around. If you want to kick us off for someone who's kind of really, like kick the door down themselves.
Running into a wall, or hopefully it comes down at some point. Yeah, I mean, I think this industry is built on trust, and this is a big thing that I really I like to have. Everyone can say something, and I said this earlier, but like to actually do it is important.
Yeah.
So I love earning people's trust. I love making projects that, as our goal for the company is we earn the trust of an audience. We have one feature that's going to be coming out, Me, Myself, and the Void, which we're really excited about. We're going to keep making projects that hopefully carve out a little bit of a taste lane and get audiences to say, oh, I trust Echobend when they make something. So when you're starting out, whatever department you are, freelance or what have you, I think just do what you say you're going to do and really earn those people, like earn it by actions. Earn it by doing things and by being kind. And I think that's another element that I think is really important is we're playing make-believe for a living at the end of the day, and a lot of people take it very seriously. And oh, it's okay. Oh no. I should have coordinated this better. I should have said the first part. Yeah, but I think like we're making cool people making cool people, that'd be a whole different initiative.
I mean, in animation.
Yeah, animation, sure.
Yeah.
But you're making things with cool people, and hopefully there's less and less politics and less like House of Cards, backstabbing, navigating. And it's crazy, even in spite of trying to make that, I still end up getting lots of politics and lots of navigating that. But I try to stay authentic and try to just do cool things. So yeah, if you're starting out, just be cool and make cool things.
Yeah. Well, I guess for Valerie, since that was your answer, what's your tip for dealing with? Because it is an industry of egos, and some, and that when I hear stories of people getting screamed at or yelled at, and it's so toxic, and it's just like we're literally adults playing make-believe. We're
not carrying hands.
We're not. It's not the world is not
Yeah,
hinging on.
maybe if it's that serious.
Yeah, but when I hear like stories from composers where like a big name director is literally throwing fruit at the screen in a scoring session because he's so frustrated. An orange, actually, but like it was just like sitting there. But like curious, like how do you navigate? Like what kind of energy I guess you would recommend bringing and having that keeping that attitude? I guess and maybe how do you interact with somebody who has a kind of a negative attitude?
Yeah, I think that it's important to, like, I don't need to fall on the sword with any of my ideas.
Yeah.
I'm there to essentially help the director and the creators of whatever we are making their whole project come to life. So I bring them ideas and they can love them, they can hate them, but it isn't something that I need to, again, fall on the sword for. So ultimately, I've worked with designers who, really fight for things, and it's just like, it's never been my approach.
Yeah.
I'm more just, okay, so if this isn't what you want, all right, let's find a solution. And we're all there, like you said, to make content for people or make films or television or whatever. And so everyone from the PA to the director, I find to be just as important.
Yeah. I sit through every film. I sit through the end credit because every name there.
I watch every credit.
Every person contributed to that film. Whether the person's bringing like boxes or boxing, the
food.
gaffers, the food, the caterers. Like,
food's important.
Yeah, they angry without food. Yeah. Well, Ethan, how about you? What's a piece of advice you'd give to somebody trying to break in or advance their career?
Yeah, I mean, for sound specifically, there's no substitute for practice.
Yeah.
So, of course, getting your hands on a sound editing system if you can, and then cutting, whether it's home movies or you find a film studio, short film, or you just rip a DVD of Star Wars and redesign it.
We did that in college in sound, but we did the scene and I did the good, bad, the ugly. I did like ADR everything.
Yeah, I mean, practice is the way to go. In other terms, things that helped me, like I think, was spending a lot of time discussing movies and learning how to criticize and talk about what does and doesn't work without being a jerk about it.
Yeah.
And without kind of, and I mean, I'm sure I fail at this every now and again, but not sounding like you know everything and like
Sure.
your idea is the only idea, but a question, especially in sound, everything is so subjective. The director says, what do you think?
Yeah.
And you've got to be able to answer that honestly without turning them off
Yeah.
to you and your ideas. So I think that's important. And then, honestly, when I was young, I think reaching out we have unprecedented access to the people in this industry and any craft that you're interested in. Find somebody whose work that you like and reach out to them. I think there's a universal epidemic among people who work in the film industry is that we all love talking about movies and what we do. And I found it invaluable whenever I was in a situation from the time I was in high school. If I was ever with somebody who was working in the industry, I started just talking to them. And it doesn't take much to get the ball rolling, and I'll talk to you forever.
I mean, we all in this because we fell in love with something that we all share kind of an interest in. And I think we kind of forget about that sometimes. And it's like, we just remember why we're here in the first place, what inspired us, what piece of art that brought us here. So so Tess, for you, what's something you would tell somebody?
Yeah, I was gonna say something very similar. Practice, and then once you've got a good, stable, grounding of what you're doing, reaching out to people. I got my job at Boombox almost 9 years ago because I cold messaged Kate Finan on LinkedIn, and she happened to be opening up a studio at the time. So
Wow.
it worked out for me, and I think that was just good timing too.
Yeah.
but not being afraid to chat with people and making genuine connections is really great. Actually liking people that you meet and getting to know them, and then making friendships in the industry is really helpful.
Yeah.
But also internships are great. If you're not quite sure, if you're doing your own thing and you're I need to step this up, that's a great way to get to know people and to learn a little bit more. Boombox is a really good apprenticeship. It's 6 months. We just closed ours for this one, but in 6 months they'll be opening up again. So if there's any sound editors, that's a good one to look into.
Yeah, I know CNS, we'll see what the new feature is. We always have summer interns from school to get credit, and so many of our interns stayed and became show creators and ran their own shows. And I think if an internship can bloom into something pretty significant for sure.
Yeah, Boombox, when we go to hire out editors, usually we try to pull from our interns and apprentices. So it's a really good step for them, and it's nice for us to grow up who we hire.
Absolutely. Networking for sure. I like what you said because it's all about bringing what I always say, don't look at what you can get from it, what can you bring to the collaboration. I want to go there to get myself a job and, this is for me, but it's if you see, I can bring this, and what Brian was talking about, if everyone's a director, that's not a bad thing. What can you bring? What can you unique? Be yourself. Don't try to, I'm not going to be this person, and blah, blah. Just bring your originality, and that's going to go so far for sure. Matt, for you, what would you tell a composer trying to get into the industry?
Well, first off, I would say don't throw fruit at composers. I mean, seriously. I know we can be a handful sometimes, but no, seriously though. Tess is saying, you're just saying internships. I started off as a composer's assistant.
Yeah.
I went to grad school for TV scoring. But I always recommend the young composers finding another composer to work for, because it's, especially scoring a feature film or a show, they really can't tell you how to do that in school.
No.
You have to see it from start to finish.
They can give you the technical, same with film school, they show you how to use the camera, but they don't tell you how to make a film. That's kind of instinct and something that you really can't teach.
And experience and just
right.
real experience.
I want to thank everybody. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Ryan, Valerie, Ethan, Tess, and Matt for being here with us. Thank you, Impact 24 Echobend Pictures. Thanks so much.